as we always do, we're going to get right into the Texans coming off 29-15 loss after a 25-20 loss. Is this panic time?
No, it's not panic time. And the reason it's not panic time is because I still think the Houston Texans are the class of the AFC division. This is a division that every other team took a step back, and I think the Texans stayed right where they were supposed to be. So right now, though things don't look good at 3-3, they're still the class of the division. It's not time to panic, and I'll tell you what else. It's not time to talk about a running back controversy. I'm starting to get tweets. People are calling our radio show asking if we should start Ben Tate or Arian Foster. You have to realize Arian Foster's coming off one of the most amazing seasons from a running back. He led the entire NFL in rushing. He had 2 bad games, but even with his quote-unquote bad games, like he had against the Ravens, he had 16 touches for 101 yards. He's shown what he could do as a receiver out of the backfield, and a lot of running backs in the NFL will take that. Ben Tate has shown that he's a fine complement to Arian Foster, but it is not any near time to have a controversy at the running back position.
I like the way afterward Foster stood up. I was standing next to him waiting for him to get dressed. He finished, he turned around, okay. And you asked him a question. He said, I was terrible. I didn't bring my A game. He said, this will not happen again. Now, a star like Foster didn't produce, but there was a kind of an unsung hero come off the bench in the defensive line. I know you love players like that. Tell me about Tim Jamison.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. When you talk about Tim Jamison, he's the one guy that really stood in my mind who rose to the challenge of not having Mario Williams in your lineup for the entire season. With the loss of Mario Williams, you're not only losing your best defensive player, you're losing your best pass rusher. So you ask yourself, is it going to be Connor Barwin? Is it going to be J.J. Watt? Is it going to be Antonio Smith? All these names that people are throwing out there, and it's Tim Jamison, the guy who barely made the team, who steps up, has 2 sacks. He doesn't get much. He doesn't get many chances to show what he could do. And what I like, he takes advantage of every single play that he's out there. I believe, and you probably won't agree with this, if he had the same amount of plays as the J.J. Watts, as the Brooks Reed, he would be more productive.
You might be right as a pass rusher. Now, one of the things I liked about Jamison, I saw an interview he did in the preseason. He goes, I want to be fed. It's time to feed. Well, he's not talking about chow. He's talking about getting a quarterback, getting playing time, making plays. And even if Mario was healthy, I doubt Mario would have had more than 2 sacks like he did. Fact is, he had 2, nobody else had any. You mentioned Reed, he played the whole game, every snap, got 2 hits on the quarterback again. He's getting close to the quarterback, and at some point he's going to get him. Now this game coming up, Tennessee, a lot of people, fire Gary Kubiak, get rid of Schaub. They're ready to pack it all in right now. Titans are coming up in Tennessee. What do you think?
I tell you what, this is what I think. I think this is the most important game when you're talking about division game. Tennessee Titans right now are number 1 in the division, but guess what? They're 0-1 in the division. The Texans are 1-0 in the division. And should I say when, the Texans beat the Tennessee Titans, they'll be 2-0 in the division, and they'll be right where they need to be to control their own fate. This is what you wanted. This is what part of your goal was. Your goal before the season is to win your division. If you do that, get the home playoff field, then you're in the playoffs. The Texans have never done that. You know, let's crawl before we walk. It's fun. Everybody would love to be 5-1, 6-0, but let's win the division. I still think they're on track, and they're in pace to do that.
They have no business losing this game. I don't care where it's played. Now, one of the things I like about it is the sense of urgency. It's not Baltimore. I think Oakland's going to end up winning that division or being a wild card with San Diego, but they should win this game. They get Jacksonville and Cleveland after that. I think they should be 6-3, and then everybody be like, oh, wow, everybody be fired up about it again. Now, to win, do they have to run? And they haven't been able to run the last 2 games. Baltimore, great against the run. Oakland wasn't. But Andre Johnson's out. Looks like he's going to be out again. And they talk about his absence, the way it affects the running game. Explain that.
Well, he's a polarizing figure on the field. He's a great player. It's almost like the Michael Jordan effect. When Michael Jordan isn't on the court, Steve Kerr doesn't play as good. Your 5 technique doesn't play as good. Well, it's the same way with Andre Johnson. When he's not on the field, the defense doesn't have to focus on this great receiver. They can focus more on the other great player in Arian Foster and not just put 8 men, but just have their minds and thinking and their plays and their X and O's all focused at Arian Foster when Andre Johnson isn't there. Even Matt Schaub, who I feel is a very good quarterback, he's not elite, not yet. He relies on Andre Johnson. So when Andre isn't there, Matt Schaub's security blanket isn't around. So Andre doesn't just affect the receiving game, he affects the entire offense, and I dare say he affects the entire team, because a lot of guys on defense, they look to Andre for motivation. They know, you know what, if we stop this team, once we get our offense on the field, anything could happen when Andre's on the field. So he affects the entire team. That's when guys are going to have to get confident, start raising up to the challenge, and they're going to have to show that they can produce without Andre Johnson. But it is interesting to see how a wide receiver really affects the running game.
They don't have to double anybody so they can commit extra players to the run. Okay, that's all fine. They had he explained last year they were 2-1 without him and averaged 60 yards more per game without him than they did with him.
Simple. Everybody stepped up to the challenge. I know that's one of those old cliches, but I don't think there's anything someone could say when it comes to technique or when it comes to play calling to why that is, why they had more success last year when he was out to this year. I just think maybe last year they took on the mindset that we really have to step it up, and this year they were just a little bit deflated when they found out Andre Johnson was going to be out for a few weeks.
Or they could have played 3 worse teams last year, which is the fact. Now, Matt Schaub, a lot of people are calling him a wimp. Elodie Nada, who's as good as there is, 360 pounds, hits him full speed right here, helmet to helmet in his chest. He got smashed here in his hip. Last week, Richard Seymour hits his knee, gets a $15,000 fine. To me, that's not a wimp. What do you think about Matt, his injuries, and how much he's getting hit this early in the season?
It's funny how you have different perspectives from different individuals who watch the games. When I was watching Matt Schaub last week, this week, and watching him get beat up, the way he would pull himself off the turf, limp back to the huddle, limp during the plays, I was thinking, man, Matt Schaub is a warrior. He's fighting through it. And then you have people complaining that he's not tough. He didn't take himself out of the game. Even if we go 2-3 years ago when he was playing against the Minnesota Vikings, I was still on the team. His knee was sprained. The doctor said, you're not going back in the game. And I remember sitting in there on the sideline with him as he argued with the doctor that he wanted to go back in. They eventually had to take his helmet away. Matt Schaub isn't a wimp. He's not soft. He's just getting beat up right now, and he's picking himself up off the grass, off the turf. You have to respect that. The people who watch the games might not notice it, but I can guarantee his teammates notice it.
Is the key to protecting him better, run the ball better, get the defense on its heels instead of its toes?
That's definitely the key. Anytime as a defensive player, when you're getting gashed with the run, after a while you just focus on the run. Your steps, your get-off is all determined by the run. And then when it is a pass, your pass rush isn't as effective. So anytime you have an effective run and you're getting 5-4 yards a pop, you have a guy like Arian Foster taking it to the house, it does affect your pass rush, and that will help Matt Schaub with the big hits.